There's a piece of paper in your pocket. It's been there since 4th period. A phone number, 7 digits. Written in that bubbly girl handwriting with little hearts over the eyes. But it might as well be launch codes. Because now you have to use it. You can't text her, there's no such thing. You can't type something out, read it back, and polish it 5 times before you send it because that doesn't exist yet. If you want to talk to her, you have to pick up a telephone, dial her house, her whole house, and speak live with your actual voice to whoever answers. I need the younger generation to understand something. This was the single most terrifying thing a Gen X teenager ever did on purpose. So tonight I'm going to walk you through the whole ordeal. From working up the nerve to dial the phone, all the way through the gauntlet of family members standing between you and one girl saying hello. If you were there, just hearing me talk about this memory made your heart rate go up a little. I know, mine did too. So you've got the number. Step 1 is not dialing it. Step 1 is solving a logistics problem. Because in a Gen X house, privacy did not exist, and phones were mounted in the most public locations available. Our kitchen phone was out of the question. That was in the middle of my house within earshot of everybody. There was a phone downstairs in the living room, but that was a gamble because then one of my sisters might want to come downstairs and watch MTV. Which left my dad's room. Upstairs with the closable door, the best privacy the house offered. But even then, everybody downstairs or in the hallway could hear the muffled sound of somebody being on the phone. They didn't know who you were calling, but they knew you were calling somebody, and in that house, that was already too much evidence. Then there's the instrument itself. In my house, we had those beige-colored rotary phones, and we had them way longer than we should have. We should have went touch tone way before we did. I think we finally upgraded in 1986. I want to explain what a rotary phone did to a nervous 15-year-old. Every digit was a separate physical commitment. You pulled the dial around, you let it go, and you stood there while it ratcheted back. 7 separate opportunities to lose your nerve. And I took those opportunities. I'd get 5 digits in and just stop, hang up. I'd walk a lap around the room. I'd lay down on my dad's bed and just make an imaginary deadline. I'd be like, okay, I'm for sure going to call her before 5 p.m. But then 30 minutes later, 5 p.m. came and I still hadn't made the call. In between these attempts, you just rehearsed. You wrote the whole call in your head. Is Jenny there? Hi, Jenny, this is Rusty. I was just wondering if you had a date to the dance yet. Simple stuff. Nothing you think a person needed to rehearse. And you'd run it in your head 4 or 5 times anyway, polishing it. And here's the cruelest part of this. All that rehearsal is exactly what made you sound like a hostage reading a statement when she finally picked it up. Overthinking it and rehearsing it just guaranteed it was going to be awkward. So 30 minutes in, on attempt number 10 or 11, you'd finally let that last digit ratchet home. And then that ringing started and your breath went wrong, short and shallow. Like suddenly you forgot how to breathe properly. Your body and nervous system had decided this was a bear attack. And then click, someone picked up. And here's a debate I want to settle in the comments because 40 years later, I still don't know the right answer. Which was worse, Jenny answering the phone herself or someone else answering? If it was her, it was instantly go time. You got 0 runway. That person you've been rehearsing for was suddenly live in your ear and your script evaporated on contact. But if it was anybody else, you got time, and that time was torture because now you had to run the protocol. Every kid in America knew the protocol. You said, is Jenny there? They said, may I ask who's calling? You gave your name and then your fate left your hands entirely. Sometimes you got the broadcast. The person just turned their head away from the receiver and yelled into the house at full volume, "Hey Jenny, Rusty's on the phone." And now her entire family, possibly her neighbors, have been formally notified of your interest. Other times you got something worse. The whisper conference. A hand went over the receiver imperfectly and you stood there listening to a muffled negotiation about you. You couldn't make out the words, you could just hear that you were being discussed by her family while you held the phone and waited for the verdict. And then there were the specialty encounters. The mom who answered and decided to make conversation while you waited, just friendly small talk, each second of which took a month off of your life. And the dad, when he said, "May I ask who's calling?" he carried the exact tone of a border checkpoint asking for your passport. And finally, the nightmare scenario, the older brother. Especially the older brother who went to your school who now possesses information and you're going to see on Monday. There was no safe path through it. Whoever picked up, you ended up exposed one way or another. But we dialed anyway, which brings me to the part of the story where I have to confess something. Because I wasn't only a caller, I had two sisters. Which means boys called my house, and on those calls, I was the checkpoint. And I want to be honest with you about how I handled that responsibility. As a brother, I understood my duty was to make it as awkward as humanly possible. Some poor kid would work up his courage, dial our number, get me, and ask, voice cracking, "Is Sandy there?" And my go-to response would be, "She's on the toilet." Sometimes I said it with my sister standing right in the room. She's hearing me say it. He's hearing me say it. Everyone is horrified except for me. It was beautiful. Even when I behaved, the logistics were their own comedy. The call would come and we'd answer the kitchen phone, naturally the worst room in the house, and my sister's not about to have this conversation in front of the entire family. So she announces she's taking it downstairs. So I'm standing there holding the phone, hand over the mouthpiece, doing a questionable job of muffling our kitchen conversation while the kid just sits there nervously. Then when I heard the click of the phone when my sister picked it up, she'd say, "Okay, got it." And if I lingered for even half a second, my older sister would yell, "Okay, Rusty, I'm on the phone." So yes, every boy dialing a number was praying he wouldn't get someone like me. And there was someone like me in every kitchen in America. And here's the final twist of the knife. Even when you made it through, even when it was just you and her finally talking, the line was never actually yours. Because everyone shared one phone line, and at any moment from either house you could hear it, the click. Somebody somewhere in one of the two houses had picked up an extension. Sometimes it came with a sigh. Sometimes my dad or sister would just say it straight into the line so the girl could hear it too. "How much longer are you going to be, Rusty?" And sometimes the click came from her end and you'd freeze mid-sentence, trying to figure out whether that was her dad or the brother. Your conversation existed in occupied territory from hello to goodbye. This was the type of thing that would give you ulcers. I'm half convinced it did. So here's where I land on all of it. I've heard people my age say that this proves we're tougher than kids today, and I understand the feeling. But honestly, I think what happened is simpler than that. We've evolved past it, and thank God. Texting is so much better. You can sit there and compose a message, fix it until it's right, and send it whenever you're ready. And nobody's dad or brother can pick up an extension on a text thread. This technology removed the requirement to perform courage in real time with your voice shaking and half a family listening in. And once that requirement was gone, nobody ever had to deal with this again. We did it though. Every one of us who ever stood in our parents' room with a piece of notebook paper and a rotary phone, hanging up at 5 digits, making it to 6 on the next try, and then finally letting that 7th one go. Jenny said hello, by the way. It went awkwardly, exactly like the rehearsals guaranteed, and it was worth every second.